We recording, Brandon?
We are recording.
Perfect. Well, today we are here with my friend King Benefice from
Yes.
Tanzania. And King, so before we get started, I want to talk about yourself for a second. I want to clear up a couple things.
No worries.
You told me your name was King Benefice.
Right.
Now, go ahead and clarify. Is your first name King or are you a king?
Well, a lot of people, my first name, is very long. And it derives from one of the Bantu languages, which is in Kirundi. Hence why it comes from Burundi.
Oh, okay.
It just means just king. That's why I just translated that first name into king.
Oh, okay. So it's a
Yes.
direct translation.
Yes, direct translation. Yes, it is.
Do you mind saying what it is? And you said it was Bantu?
Yeah, it's a Bantu, one of the Bantu languages. It's like, you see, the thing is, if you look, I don't know how we would call it. If anyone have done the research or have gone to college initially, or back in high school or something like that, they touch upon the in world history, the second half or the first half. They talk about the first Bantu migration and the second Bantu migration. You see, below the Saharan below the Saharan desert in Africa, every language is similar. They have one root language, just like, for example, the Romance languages. They have Latin, or the Germanic languages. They have German. So that's how it is. It derives from that, and it's Nisumbavios.
That's how you pronounce your...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Say that again?
Nisumbavios.
Oh, okay.
That's how you say it. Yeah, you have to say it with a V, and some people have accents and whatever, but it just means just king. That's what it means.
So is there some sort of family meaning? I mean, king, that's a
Yeah.
a lofty thing. Why did your parents name you King?
You see, the thing is, it's just a lot of the Eastern countries are heavily influenced by Christianity.
Okay.
Either Catholics, either the Catholic Church, or either they're part of the Catholic Church or Protestant, or they're just heavily in all divisions in regards to Christianity, and a little bit of 1% of Muslims.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how did that play into your parents coming up with that name?
Oh, basically, what it is that, you see, every name they just come up with these names and just have different meanings. And for me, when they came up with that name at the time, it was during war. So in the probably like mid 70s, or somewhere 1972, all the way to the 2005. I mean, that part of Africa was driven by war, death everywhere. And so during that, you can say I was literally born in the forest.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't expect to go here, but tell me what was the war? What was
The
going
wars.
Yeah.
So in regards to the wars, you see, the thing is, if we have just go back, I mean, humans will always fight. That's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you're African or whether you come from Europe, whatever. We will always fight. It's like that's within us. We always fight. We always compete. And that's what drives, prosperity, or that's what drives the nation to go further. And what thing is, what happened at the time was back in the colonial times. It all started back in colonial times. It started in the East African German company, which came into Africa, East Africa. They came into Tanzania, and and it was in 1885. That's when Bismarck had the scramble for Africa. They came together in Germany and divided Africa together. They divided Africa amongst themselves. The British took South Africa, Zimbabwe and all those places, of course, and Kenya and South Sudan, and acquired, how it is. And then the Germans acquired East Africa, which included 4 countries. Burundi, Rwanda, and Tanzania. Yeah, actually 3. Yes, I believe so. Yes, Burundi, Tanzania, Rwanda. That's the 3 countries that were included in that. And so what happened in that duration? The Germans were really, really brutal in terms of rebellion, like people who rebelled against them, they wiped them out. I mean, let's look at West Africa. West Africa, what is we call Namibia. If you look at that country, what they did to that country, it was an example of the future, what was to come in Europe when they did the Holocaust. That's what they participated. That's what they did in East Africa. You see, in West Africa, in Namibia. In Namibia, that's what they did. They made the first concentration camps.
Really?
Yes. They wiped out almost the natives, they wiped them out in West. Yeah. Close to wiping them out.
What was the reasoning or the justification that they gave for it?
You see, the thing is, when they came in there, they just, like I said before, their place, they wanted to make, just like any empire, they want land, okay? They want a place where they can prosper, where they can spread their influence and everything. And what's the best way to do that? Just like the British did in South Africa, where they wiped out, pushed the natives off the native lands and moved them out to other places so they can prosper. One set of groups prosper. In East Africa, it was kind of it was a bit different. It was a bit different, of course. In East Africa, let's start off with the different kingdoms that were there. Now, my family line, my bloodline, goes deep, really goes deep in the kingdom of Burundi. It really goes deep in the kingdom.
What is it? Explain that for me.
So basically, what it is that, you see, a part of my family line was they were very close with the kingdom. They were very close with the kingdom. They were very high. I can say that, And still today, they own big parts of Burundi. They own big parts of Burundi. I'm not saying by any chance I'm like this whole. No, I'm not. It's just we go back. I was there in March, and I saw the properties are near the source of the Nile. That's where the source of the Nile, that's where the Nile comes out. It starts in Burundi, and it ends up to be this big, vast, flowing north, right?
Yeah.
Flowing north. But essentially, I'm going everywhere, but essentially going back to East Africa, the Germans, when they came in, they started influencing the locals to buy their products, trying to create economic boom throughout that region. Just like the British came in America and they started taxing people. That's what they did in East Africa. Started taxing and getting natives to buy European goods and all that. And the king at the time, they complied. All right, they had to comply or they'd be killed.
Sure.
That's how it is. Now, there was 3 groups, which in Burundi and Tanzania, they're all one people. I can tell you that.
Okay.
They're all one people. Why?
So when did they get split up into 3 different countries, and why?
When did they get split into? So it happened in the 1960s and 50s.
Okay.
That's when the That's when the African continent was changing. Truly.
And regaining its independence from these European countries.
From these European countries, like for
I
example,
believe Tanzania, 1961 got there, which it was Tanganyika.
Yes, it was Tanganyika before. Yes,
before it became Tanzania.
Yeah. And you know what happened in World War One.
So I read that actually some of the tribe members, some of the people in Tanzania actually fought in World War One.
In World War One, what was the first battle?
It was in somewhere in Africa, wasn't it?
It was in East Africa.
Oh,
that was the first. The first battles was not in Europe. It was among these European colonies, Africans against Africans, from different colonies.
So why were they fighting?
They were fighting, for example, you know what happened in Europe? You see, the thing is, what happened in Europe when that person got killed, whatever, the tensions and all that stuff. In Africa, because they had these different pieces of properties, they fought among each other. They fought among each other initially, because you see what happened was that when the the Axis powers and all that came together, and then the Allies came together and whatnot, they had to assemble their military at the time, and their first battles were in East Africa. It was the Belgium who attacked the German from the Congo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the Belgium who attacked the Belgium from the Congo, and then it was the English who attacked the German from Kenya.
Mm.
So when they attacked initially, that's what happened. And so when they fought, and of course they lost. Of course, the Axis power lost. Hence, why the Germans only spend. I mean, look how many decades they just about a decade or something like that. 2 decades. There was not enough to influence the natives to speak German. Right now, I'll be speaking German. I do speak German, but right now, they will be speaking German.
Okay. All right. So we covered a lot of ground there, a lot of history.
A lot of history.
We got right into it.
Yeah. It's really yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you said your bloodline goes back deep into these tribes.
Yes, these
they're
tribes. Yep.
High ranking.
Yep.
I don't know how they're
Yep,
structured,
yep.
but so in Tanzania, how many different tribes are there? Because it's a pretty eclectic place, isn't it?
Let me tell you, Tanzania is full of 200 something tribes. 200 something tribes. And each
Really?
tribes, yes, each tribe has its own specific language.
What?
But the one language that always collectively gathers everyone, even in Burundi too as well, is just one. It's just called Swahili, which is spoken throughout East Africa. Swahili is the language you will hear a lot.
So is it everybody in these tribes speaks 2 languages, their native tribe and Swahili, or is
Yes.
it their native tribe is kind of a dialect of Swahili? You understand?
We could say this. It's a Bantu language,
Okay.
which means it derives from a root, that Bantu root language. And you know where the Bantu migration, you know where they came from, right?
Explain it to me.
Cameroon.
Okay.
There were you see, that's where all these tribes and all that stuff, that's where they all have just one, they were all one people. They're all one people. You have to understand this. They're
Across
one
all
people.
of Africa.
Across all of Africa. If you look at how they migrated from Cameroon all the way through the Congo and then made their way towards the Somalia, and that's a little different story in terms of why they have these fights, Somali Bantu and Somalis, why they fight each other. And then you go down south all the way to Malawi, always almost to the Cape. You have only one root language, which is the Bantu language. But it's just different dialects, different language, variations and all that stuff. Just like, Slavic and just in Europe, Slavic and and all that stuff.
You see the same thing with Spanish, different,
Yep.
whether it's in Spain
Yep.
or, you're in Mexico,
Yep.
you're in Dominican, they all have they
own
can all
thing.
talk to each other, but
Yes.
they have their own
Yes.
slang and dialects. And
Yes.
so is it pretty common for anybody across all of Africa to be able to communicate with each other, or has it diversified?
It has really drastically diversified. It's like one group. Like, for example, as the Bantu people migrated across the Congo all the way to the other side, the Indian Ocean, some stayed in isolated location to the point where the language is unnoticeable no more. It's only certain words that all the languages meet together on. For example, if you go throughout East Africa and you say water, they all have the same saying in a way. When they say, in Kirundi, you could say maji, amazi in Kirundi. And then in Swahili, you say maji. But certain people say mai. You see what I'm saying? They're all saying the same
word
thing.
has drifted a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's just
but
drifted. Yes, it's the same thing. But then you go deeper into that language or deeper into that dialect and you can completely never understand each other. That's where you get cut off and you're like, you're totally different. I don't understand. I can't understand what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. Once it's drifted so far away,
Exactly.
you can't.
Yep. Certain words.
So you said you were born in the jungle.
Yes.
And how long did you live in that environment, I guess?
In that environment, and for me at the time, I could say that I didn't live in that time, in that area for a very long time.
Do you remember any of it? Do you recall what it's
yes.
like? I mean, or do you? I mean, I'm trying to. I grew up in America. I grew up in California, right?
Yes.
I always had a house. Always had.
Yes.
I mean, you know what it's like to be in America. You've been here for a while. Can you explain to me what it's like to live in a jungle? What does a day look like? What are you living in?
Oh
You
man.
understand the question? I mean,
Yes,
I'm trying to
yes.
understand what that
Uh,
means.
so to live in a jungle, it's basically the mindset that you have to put yourself in is that everything you have to pay the price.
Meaning,
Meaning that just like Newton's third law, let's talk about that. Newton's third law. Every action, there's a reaction.
okay,
So if you spend a large amount of time on one thing, you waste your time. You pay the price. So if you spend more time on useless things, for example, like as a young boy, we were told, or we were told to go do certain tasks throughout the day, certain chores to keep ourselves or to keep to keep our bodies in check in terms of how much water we ingest, of course, or how much we eat, because we ate little. At the time, the UN, like I said, during the war, civil wars, like at the time, the UN stepped in and assisted us. Of course, we lived in the we moved into that UN camp essentially, out of the forest because they were, wiping out. They were killing people in the forest, and that's what we
who's
were in.
they?
Let me tell you, man. They these at the time in Burundi. You see what happened? There was a civil war in Burundi. You guys remember the Rwandan genocide?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I
How
mean,
in the course of
I know of it.
100 days, how they wiped out like certain
Mm-hmm.
groups of people.
Yeah.
So in Burundi, what was happening is there was a civil war, and there was this tribe. Initially, it was just tribal. I could say that is in a sense all tribalism, and this is where it goes back to colonial times when the Belgians which were the worst of them all, who put people against each other. And in the 1960s, that's when genocide started happening. And you could do, and for those of you who really want to do more in deep research on this, I mean, search up Burundian genocide 1972, how the government did a collective genocide. Like they really plot this genocide to the bare bone. Like rounded up these Hutus, as they say. That's what they call them. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes from, Bantu Hutu, which just means human, but it's just one of the tribes that live in Burundi. And then there's Tutsis, of course, who are these other type of people, and then there's Twa, which are pygmies, who are the shortest people. Mm-hmm. The pygmies were the first one in those areas, and then the Bantus came in, and then the Tutsis came in. Okay. Essentially, that's how we went. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, they're all killing each other, killing each other, and then it spilled into Tanzania. In the 1990s, it spilled into Tanzania, and that's when it erupted again in 1993. That's when they shot down. In 1994, that's when they shot down the president's plane. And I'm pretty sure you guys can look this up too as well, and find 1994. That's when they killed both presidents, the president of Burundi and the president of Rwanda. That's when they were coming from Tanzania, the Arusha Accord. It was called the Arusha Accord. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was that at the time when they were flying, they were shot down in Kigali in Rwanda, and that's what spilled civil war in Burundi and civil war and genocide in Rwanda, which spilled into Burundi, which spilled into Tanzania at the time. And so massive people were fleeing to Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And my ancestors, like I said before, my ancestors came from Burundi. I was born, and most of my families were all born in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And so during that time, I'm telling you, UN was doing everything they can to keep everyone safe and to feed us and everything like that. But at the time, of course, you already know how it is. I can give you 100% that a collective of countries they plot this genocide. They plot this. It's just, if I can go more in depth, it's like the cryptocracy. Okay. If you know the cryptocracy, you know how the cryptocracy works?
Explain it.
So you see, what we have today is because of somebody's sorrow. That's how I can explain it mostly. Okay. Because if you see, the cryptocracy is these companies, these high companies who work in foreign countries, mm-hmm. And so what they do is basically they go to a certain country, a third world country, and they tell them, hey, we're gonna make you prosper. We're gonna do this for you. We're gonna do that for you. And the World Bank says, you know what? Here, we give you this much money, right? They go in these countries. Yeah, these countries go apply. They go apply for these loans, these huge, massive loans, and they can't pay it off. They can't pay it off, man. This is fact. And that's why, I mean, even still today, there's countries still in debt. There's countries who want to prosper, but it's not they don't understand what they're getting into. And so during the 1990s and 1980s, that area, let me tell you something, even through the Clinton administration, you can go and this stuff you can find online. Truly. Clinton, the Clinton administration at the time, when the civil war was in Burundi and genocide was in Rwanda, the Clinton they said, they let them fight among themselves. The world turned a blind eye while people were slaughtered in the streets, while people were killed, while babies were taken out of their mother's stomach and killed for no reason, and because of wealth. You don't know how the Clinton. Let me tell you something. You don't know how the Clinton family owned mines and mines of gold, mines and mines of diamonds in East Africa. This is This is what Americans don't know. Truly, this is
really.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Let me tell you. You know how I know this? It's because I know that most people don't know this, but for me, I'm really deep. Like I work with governments.
Okay.
And I read documents all the time.
You work with governments. Explain what that means.
So I work with governments. Essentially, I was in Burundi, and we'll put a link on the video. When I was in Burundi between February and March, we were working on a contract. We were working on contracts in terms of building 200 homes for these individuals who don't have proper homes. And they do have homes, but these homes, as you saw in the video for yourself, of course,
you showed me.
These videos don't. What's it called? These homes they're not able to take or withstand the environmental aspects. And so they're always tearing down. Of course, the materials that they use is just dirt and clay. Dirt and clay don't work well in water. They fade apart. And so while we were signing contracts, of course, and I'm reading all these documents, let me tell you, I read extensive documents of the past because if those who don't know their past are bound to repeat the future.
Yeah.
They're bound to go back and do a circle. It's like a circle again. I'm not doing that. And this is what I'm saying. Like,
so what did you find when you read all these documents?
Oh, man. Let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff. A lot. It's like there's certain things where what you thought when you read something or what you thought you knew, it's just eye-opening. These documents, like certain documents that I read on those times, and why things were happening, while they were killing millions and millions, there were corporations in the back digging for wealth. There were corporations in that time that gained millions and millions of dollars. And these are, of course, weapon companies. These are companies that make bullets. These are companies that make guns, and these are companies that mine and exploit these countries because these countries are engulfed in war. Guess what? They're not focused on they don't care about these rocks. They don't care. They don't care about what's it called? These I call it lumber or whatever. They don't care. They worry about their safety. They worry about the political status or who's in power.
Yeah. So do you think it's I'm learning about a lot of this as you're telling me. So do you think it was they created this problem so that they could go in and take these resources, or are they opportunists that, hey, there's a problem and we have an opportunity to go in and take the resources? It's a bit of,
it's a bit of what makes you say that.
Yeah. Do you understand the question though?
Yeah, I do. I think if I don't, I'm gonna interpret it in the best way I can, of course. I think that we just have to go to the root. We really have to go to the root. At the beginning of the day, we really have to go to the root because, let's face it, man. The African continent is always been extracted, and African continent runs the world. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't know this stuff.
Explain what you mean by that.
It runs the world. Okay, look at your phone one day. Go look at your phone, and ask yourself: do you think your phone is assembled? What are these phones? What are these phones made out of?
Mm-hmm.
Where these materials come from?
Mined out of Africa.
Yeah, mined out of Africa. And guess what? All these mines.
And assembled in China.
Yes, yes. All these mines. There's children in these mines. You know how I know this stuff? Because I was in Africa.
Did you see this?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, come on. I was in Africa. I see people dying. I mean, these deaths go unreported because the government don't care. And this is how I know this. Because I run a company myself. A mining company.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about that. What do you,
it's called
in
POA,
Africa?
Yes, in Africa. It's called POA Suprema.
Okay.
All right. Mining mining in Muyinga, which is a province in the north of Burundi, near bordering Rwanda.
Uh-huh.
And so I went there myself, and I said, in fact, a few weeks ago, I sent my directors shout out to, Godson, one of my directors who went up north, and so I mean they're sending me extensive reports. People are dying. They're really working and dying in these mines.
So is there anything that you can do, I mean, to step in, to stop this, to put age limits on who's working, to create safer, I mean, are you involved in cleaning this up?
Oh, yeah, heavily. Let me tell you something, man. I believe in the people, truly. I in fact, in the next year, 2 years or so, we're gonna be exporting some big machineries out there who are gonna be doing a lot and make the work safer. And also, like I said, age limit is really key. Age limit is really key. Making that 18 and older working in these mines is much preferably, and also having these proper uniforms to work in such situations or environment is very important in having that, because as a company you don't have those things. You should have those things clear.
So what do you think is the pathway to let's just take mining for example?
Yes, sir.
You're telling me that the circumstances are dangerous. We have young people working in these mines. What's the pathway to cleaning that up? Is it some sort of government intervention, putting regulations on, or do you think you, as somebody who's running a company, can you set a standard that is going to force the people around you to I mean, then everybody's going to want to come work for you, I would think. I'm not sure how it works there. Is that going to force the other companies to clean up their act as well? What do you think is the fix? Is it government intervention? Is it a combination? What's going on? How do we solve this?
I think, I think it's a little bit of a combination, because I believe that, the government has a wide network, and how they really spread out these rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And I think that as a company, you should work together with the government in a sense, and that's what corporations do all the time. Let's face it.
Okay.
That's what corporations do all the time. Let's say they want to implement this, they're going to implement that. Because they're gonna check with the government. You need to check and balances. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think that a lot of it, I would say the company has to really look at the employee. The most important thing as a company to focus on is the employees. Truly not the profitable side, whatever. Because who's putting their backs and sweat and hard work into making the company profitable is the employees. So I think that the company needs to make the first move. And then after that, push it towards the government. The government is going to execute and spread the news and implement that. And guess what? Other companies will follow too.
Do you think there's a government in play? And I'm not making any judgments because I have no clue.
No worries.
Do you feel like you have a government in place that you can trust to do the moral, ethical, responsible thing? Or is there too much corruption over there for you to trust that they're going to do their job?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that. I can say that, in terms of the governments that are out there, a lot of people may say, oh, there's corruption. There's corruption. Guess what? There's corruption everywhere. There's corruption everywhere. And guess what? We Americans, whatever you call it, in this state or whatever, populism, you know, we're so busy in our own work that we don't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
We don't pay attention to detail. We're so worried about ourselves. That's how it is. We're so freaking worried about ourselves to the point where we don't even think about corrupt. We don't even, oh, he did that? Oh, I'm going to mind my own stuff. I don't care about him.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that affects everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chain that affects everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, going back to the question you asked me, it's not the matter that the government that is there that you trust, is who is in there. Have you ever asked yourself that? Who is truly in there?
In there, you mean in the government?
Yes.
Are you talking about the individual? And
Yes.
at the end of the day, you would say that a government is it's a corporate structure that you can look at on paper, and but at the end of the day, is what individual is holding what position, and they themselves have certain amount of integrity or more value or characteristics.
Exactly.
So it comes down to the individual level.
Yes.
Does that individual have?
Yes. And what in regards to how it interacts with you or how it's relevant to you, is that what do you have? What type of connection do you have to that individual?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at, for example, how these there was an election that happened, for example, like for example, you look at all these elections that happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for president, for office, who's supporting all these people? Have you ever seen who's supporting all? Where are they getting all this money? I know they don't work. They're not millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Who's pushing all these campaigns? Why are they going to small businesses? Because the small business or big corporations, why do they support these politicians? Because they know if they get in power, guess what? They're going to comply, because these companies are the ones who believed or who believe in them getting in office, that they're going to go forward on the terms that they they talked about in private.
Yeah.
And that's our approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To a certain extent, that's our approach, because we believe in the people who are there, that they will execute. They will execute on certain tasks. They will execute on certain laws, because I'm pretty sure, lobbyists are what they do. That's their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Lobbyists, man. And that's what happens in East Africa, man. It's not a matter of corruption. It's just a matter of who's in there and what do they think about. And how can you assist and facilitate and make sure that those actions are fully executed at the right time?
Yeah. I would say maybe as a counter to what you're saying, I think incentives matter. And the incentives that are laid out, if you have a structure that incentivizes somebody, if somebody's going to profit for doing something immoral, eventually you're going to have somebody in there that does that immoral thing so they can profit from it.
Exactly.
Right? If you have a structure that's set up so they're incentivized to benefit the community, well, people are going to take that incentive, because, as you pointed out, we're all worried about ourselves.
Exactly.
We're all involved in our own little world.
Yep.
So if you set up these incentive structures correctly and you put boundaries on power, I think, in my opinion, one of the best things that came out of that the forefathers of America did when they wrote the Constitution was, I think a lot of it was telling the government what they can't do to the individual. It wasn't telling them what power they have. It was saying what they can't do and putting limits on power of the government.
Right.
So I kind of launched off on my own.
No, you're fine. You're
but so that's why I'm kind of asking about how it's set up over there. Not as there corruption, because there's corruption everywhere, but is there a structure set up to where you can trust that the government's going to be acting in your best interest, the people's best interest?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Interesting conversation, man. A lot of really cool. So you said something about the World Banks and these loans, and I want to go back because I want to clarify on this.
Yeah,
so
no worries.
Are you suggesting that loans are being given to these countries knowing that they're not going to be able to repay them, because then they'll be indebted to the loaner?
Yes. That's the way it goes. That's what you see. This is what I'm saying.
And then as you go, I want you to explain, what is the benefit to the loaner? What do they take in place of them not being able to pay them back? Tanzania not being able to pay the World Bank back. You
You
understand?
see, yes, yes. So, for example, there was. Let's take Tanzania. Let's take Tanzania for example, right? So Tanzania, you see, there was a president that recently died. I think you know about it. His name was President Magufuli. He's not that. He hasn't been that long since he died,
Okay.
and he came to power with a fist, with the iron fist.
Okay.
And so, I know that his name, his name is it means President Magufuli means keys. He has the keys, basically. Magufuli.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it means
Whoa.
in Swahili.
Yeah.
That's what it
Okay.
means in Swahili. He has the keys, or he has the lock.
Uh-huh.
He's gonna lock everything.
Mm-hmm.
President Magufuli. And so what he did what any president couldn't do. He did it. He did all these. He funded, or I could say that he changed Tanzania in 5 years that he was in president. As president, he changed
Changed.
Tanzania.
Good or bad?
Oh, he brought prosperity. He brought
Explain
massive. He basically did a big crackdown. He did it. Let's take it from our perspective. He went down into the government. He broke down the government to the point where nothing can be corrupt. Like, to a certain degree, nothing can be corrupt. Because you see, the thing, he went on a big crackdown in terms of this huge contract that was between China and Tanzania. This contract initially, if you could do your own research too as well, and those who are interested in that, these contracts are basically that the Tanzanian, or the port, or this mining company of that comes from China initially, was set to mine in Tanzania for 100 years. I forget what it is. I forget what the contract is called, but he cracked down on that. He cracked down on that.
I mean, so when you say he cracked down on that, what did he break the contract?
Oh yeah, he broke the contract. Oh my God, he broke the contract. And guess what? He found that other corporations weren't paying their debt. That were working in the country, they weren't paying their debt. And when they were not paying their debt, man, let me tell you, he pushed them out. But I know I'm going off a little bit of.
Well,
yeah.
see if you can help me tie this together. So
Right,
we
right.
have the World Bank
Right.
gives out these loans.
Yeah.
Knowing Tanzania can't pay it back.
Right.
Now Tanzania is not paying back. Are you saying that's where China steps in and takes this 100-year, can make this 100-year contract? Am I? I'm trying to connect the dots here.
Yeah, this is what I was going back to. Like, I went off a little bit on that. I gave a few examples on. I'm giving you a few examples on the president, what he did.
Yeah.
Specifically what he did. And so breaking these contracts with these companies, I mean, it's the government basically sending these companies overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And so breaking these contracts with these companies, basically you're pulling the country out of debt. Because if you can't pay these countries, you see, the thing is, one great example of it is basically, if you look at some of these massive projects that are being built in East Africa or any other African countries or any third world countries, these companies are foreign companies that are coming into that country and building these projects. And once they finish those projects, or some of them never even begin. Some of them never even begin building these projects because they say that the money has been given, even though the money or whatever money that's been given, that money doesn't go to that country. That money goes in the pockets of others. That money goes in the pockets of certain groups of people who are involved in pushing this agenda, because these countries don't just make up these numbers or just go ahead and take up these massive loans. No, they're forced to take up these massive loans, because if they don't, then it's basically the end game. And that's why they killed President Magufuli, because what he did, he broke down all these different contracts, and he really made the Tanzanian really work for themselves. And this is why I'm saying that given the World Bank, of course, allows loans to certain countries, all these loans, of course, are to be paid by either resources, that the country can give, or basically if you can't give the resources, they come and take that property. And that's what China is doing today. But the America has been doing this for a long time in South America. You remember the banana wars? Do
I
you
know.
know? You
I've
remember?
heard of the name. I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Oh man, you know the banana wars, man. Let me tell you, it's just basically these huge, massive companies that went into South America. You remember? I think you remember this in history. If you can do your research too, or that in history, what happened is that while Europeans were colonizing other parts of the world, America set the South America for its sphere of influence.
Yeah.
That's what they did, and guess what they did? They knew that there was this the tropics. These companies knew that the tropics were great for these fruits, different fruits, for example, especially the banana at the time. And so basically, what it is that they send these companies into that land, and these companies kept buying, kept buying property, and the president at the time in these certain countries in South America, like Nicaragua, man, I'm telling you, they couldn't do anything. And so these companies had the power. They grew bananas and they exported bananas, and nothing was for the people. And guess what? When these corporations couldn't take care of themselves, or when these corporations, so they were having someone, the president at the time, it was giving them a hard time, they usually wipe them out. They usually kill him. They usually kill the president. These companies kill the president. Or they send the military, and the American military always stepped in, of course. And this is what's happening in Africa. Africa, what they do is they have their own people kill, or they pay someone to kill the president, which that's what happened in Tanzania. That's why the President Magufuli died. That's why they killed him. Because he changed the country. I mean, he made the people believe that they can get out of poverty. He gave people he just brought a sense of direction. And this is what I'm saying, going back to the World Bank question. These loans are given to countries, third world countries, who know they can't pay it. But there's a reason why they can't pay it, because the reason why they can't pay is because they don't have enough of resources, or they don't have the capability to mine these resources, to extract these resources from the country, and the money doesn't go over there to build these roads, whatever, these electricity or water networks or sewage networks. That's why they're still there. What do you wonder? Have you ever asked yourself, why do millions and millions of dollars go to these projects overseas, whatever, and nothing's being done? It's because these millions of dollars are going to different people, people in the UN and people all over the world who run these corporations, who these building corporations, these manufacturing corporations. They say they're going to bring prosperity. Instead, this money goes into the pockets. For example, let me give you a good example. I was in Burundi in March. There was and look this up too if you have to. There was $400 million that was given. Mr. Biden gave $400 million to the president of Burundi.
For what?
Because you see, the thing is, during the time of the previous president of Burundi, which he's late, he's dead now. So what happened was that the Burundian government wasn't complying, and this is where politics plays in. Politics, they're pushing the countries to do and influence the countries. If they don't comply, you dead. They kill you. They send someone to kill you. This is how it is.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying, that so there was a lot of I don't know, what is it, economic block or something, or the money. You see, there was a certain amount of money that was given, that the U.S. gave to Burundi to keep itself running and to help the country itself. So they cut that aid off, basically, aid that was given to Burundi from the U.S. They cut that aid off. Once they cut that aid off, what literally happened after that was that ever since they cut that aid off, nothing was happening, because the president at the time, which is President Nkurunziza, wasn't complying with the UN, wasn't complying with the US on what they wanted. And so what happened was there was economic sanctions put upon the Burundi government. And after that, after the president died, the president that got on, which is what's his name, Evariste, recently all the economic whatever was taken off. And guess what? Mr. Biden, he was generous enough to send $400 million into the country. And guess what happened to that, to the currencies? You already know what happens to currencies once you
Inflation?
inflation and all that. It goes up. It hurts every. I mean, that region. I was there at the time. I was there when that 400 million entered the country. I was there.
What did you see happen?
What did you see?
Yeah.
All currencies went.
Really?
I'm telling you, all currencies
so
went down.
for the normal person that they during this time they walked into a grocery store, did the prices change?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, did the price of a loaf of bread double, triple? What happened?
What happened basically was the value. The value of the Burundian franc, the value of the Tanzanian franc, it went down. It went down. Basically, more dollars. The dollars, because the dollar is valued everywhere, and you already know the history behind that. The dollar is valued everywhere. It's way higher than any currency, whatever you call it. And so, when the $400 million came in, what happened was, because there was so much dollars in the system, when truly there was nothing there. That 400 million didn't go there. It was speculation. It was purely speculation. So it's like it's like the stock market. They say it's gonna happen like this, and then guess what? Everything goes down or goes up because it's speculation.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened in Burundi. In Burundi, what happened was that 400 million didn't enter into that country. No. That 400 million did not enter. It was just purely speculation. It was just written in. Guess what? Speculation really manipulates. And so what happened was the currency devalued. And so for me at the time, I had to rush and give out as much dollars I can to trade it, because at the time I was using Burundian francs, of course, in that country. There's Burundian francs only.
Sure.
And so, man, I'm telling you, man, it is just crazy, man. It is just crazy.
Wow. It's hard for me to realize how much a currency can be affected by an outside actor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've seen inflation here,
right?
And we're complaining about gas prices going up, and I don't like it. I mean, I'm seeing how much more I'm spending when I'm going to the grocery store, but I don't think it's anything like what you're describing that you saw back in March.
Yeah, back in March,
Burundi.
And guess what's happening now?
What's
Even
that?
in Tanzania too. You already know what happened in 1975 when what's it called, when the U.S. of course, the Shah, they were supporting the Shah and all
Iran?
that. Yep, Iraq, and they're supporting the Saudi Arabia, which is a big oil export. They made it to the point where only you sell in dollars, you buy oil in dollars, and guess what happens? Burundi doesn't have enough dollars, and right now, you know what's happening? They don't got petrol, they don't got gas. The country is just running. No gas, nothing is moving, no economic input, and it's hurting a lot of our companies out there.
Yeah.
Transport is really high. When we talk about gas reserves, in Burundi they have gas reserves, but they don't have the capability to just extract that oil. They don't have. They're buying it. They're buying it from Russia, and the Ukrainian war affects East Africa. Just alone, I'm telling you. I mean, it's just they cut off. Everything got cut off. And when you're buying gas in American dollars, when you don't have American dollars in your circulation, you're dead, truly dead. No gas reserve, nothing at all. When your country just barely scraping by, when your country that can't even produce its own sugar or its own salt. I mean, let's face it. Even Tanzania too. I mean, both ways. East Africa, and it's just immense. It's just immense. It goes deeper than that.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing a good job of pointing out is we're kind of insulated here, right? A lot of the things that go around the world, maybe we see some slight effects, but at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't affect us a ton. Where something happens, there's a shift in geopolitics. The Ukraine war starts. There's some money given. There's inflationary. To a smaller country in East Africa,
right,
has a huge effect.
Oh yeah.
So the ups and downs, the volatility
right.
of it is a lot more severe than what we might be used to here. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, dude, I'm telling you, man. I mean, let's go back to the board. America consumes 25% of the world's resources out of any country. Think about that. We eat 25% of world's food. And that's what a lot of Americans don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand. And we treat everything, we take everything for granted.
Mm-hmm.
We're just barely scraping by.
Mm-hmm.
At any time, anything just, pow, and we're back.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
And all going to Africa is back in time, basically.
Yeah.
It's the reality is that knowing that you just really only surviving, the most important thing is that understanding that I need you and we all need each other to survive is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize it when you go to Africa. You know, I spend a lot of time in East Africa. I spend a lot of time in South Africa. I spend a lot of time in the Congo itself too as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find that, you know, we all are a community.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need each other. We all truly need it to the
Yeah.
bare bone, because there's someone right now who's working hard to keep that light on.
Mm-hmm.
Someone right now working so hard to keep your water running right here.
Mm-hmm.
Someone right now who's working so hard to make sure that you eat your meat. Right now, someone who's working their back off to make sure that you have paper to write on, or keep that pen, or even shirts. Have you ever looked at your shirts, where they come from? I mean, it's just imaginable, man.
Dude, that's such a powerful point, what you're saying about how the world runs, and everything that we can take for granted. Somebody worked hard and is working hard to keep that running.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such an important lesson in gratitude.
I'm telling you, man.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, go
You
ahead.
said you've been all over Africa. What's the most prosperous country or region you've been to? Or maybe you haven't even been there, but you know of in Africa. What place is really killing it over there?
Killing it over there in terms of economic input?
Yeah,
or-
economic, prosperity of the individual. And I understand there's a difference between a region where maybe there's an aristocracy where there's a few people that are really rich and then the rest is really poor. But where's the place where maybe has a pretty good middle class, and, hopefully there's more people out of poverty than in poverty.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, where's the place that's best for the larger community, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no worries. I would say a lot of people tend to say South Africa.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to say South Africa, but right now South Africa's not looking pretty good.
Okay.
I
But
can tell you
historically,
that, yeah.
South Africa
Yeah, oh
has.
yeah.
Okay, can you explain why? Did the geopolitics affect there differently and they made it through better? Did they have different resources? Did they say no to certain loans they couldn't pay back? Did they have a certain government economic structure? Like, why were they successful? And I don't know, I'm asking, where maybe some places weren't as successful. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Oh yeah, I understand. You see, South Africa, if you look at towards the beginning itself, South Africa, we believe, honestly, I can go back a stretch off of a little bit of the topic, because if you look at the beginning, of South Africa, truly, you have these different influences coming from outside of the continent itself. You have the Dutch coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they call them the Boers, right? And then you have the British coming in, and both of them, of course, they're fighting each other, all these different wars in South Africa, and then they're fighting the natives too as well, and everything like that. It's just that they established something that has been going on for centuries in Europe. They established something that has been going on for centuries in Europe, to the point where, when they established this whole system, of course, the natives were not involved in, so they did not participate, therefore, and they were not even educated to participate in such activities. They were only driven to work, all right? Only work. You were born to work in the fields, that's all, and work labor things. No, you don't need to learn this stuff and all that stuff. You don't need to go to college or anything like that. They were given those orders only, all right? Given those orders. And also, it's a purely mentality. It's all in the head. Let me tell you, it's all in the head. When you say you were poor, whatever, all that, it's all in the head. It's not the body, whatever. It's not your circumstance. When you change your thought, it's all in the head. So they program all these different people, the natives, that they are not capable of anything. It's only later generations when they start waking up in the 1950s and 60s and 70s and 80s. You hear these different uprising and all that stuff, of course. And until the 1996 or 1995, that's when South Africa, of course, with Mandela, with Mandela, who came in, of course, who really fought for the South Africans to really have a unification, because they never judged anybody's color. They didn't care. Africans don't care about your color, truly. And I can say Africans are the most racist people in the world. I can tell you that.
They're the most racist?
Yeah, they're the most racist.
Explain that to me.
What do you mean? You're the most racist. You know why I say that?
Why?
Because for me, even though we're just one skin color, I'm telling you, we'll find something about you we don't like. And they're always fighting each other all the time. We're racist. We're so racist. I'm telling you.
Is that a tribal thing? They'll find tribal differences that divide the lines?
They will always divide the lines. And I think it's just not about race also. It goes just deeper. It's just on human nature. We just like to, flock to all the people we similar have interest in.
Sure.
And it's not just about I guess I just generalized that to say race, but it's not about race, because we're all human, and we're just really driven to those people to connect with those people. We really have those things in line.
Commonalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all
and
goes
everybody
back,
else is the others.
Yeah, everybody else is the others. And if you have a thing with us, we unite. We have a unification together, and it's you against us. That's the way it goes, and we're just one people. I just don't understand. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I just laugh at it when I see people say, oh, because of this and that. I'm like, you human, man. At the end of the day, if you were just to take this off me or just, cut me open, you won't find anything that is different from me or you. It's just flesh. That's what it is. And we have the same thing. But honestly, going back to the topic, South Africa was just structure. They were structured. They were very structured, and they knew what they were doing. All right? They knew what they're doing. They set up a system. Every system was set up only to benefit the few, which is the minority. Let's face it. It's fact. It was only to set up, to benefit the Boers, or the Afrikaans, or the British, only to serve them. That's what it was for. And then them over there in the other side of the world, the other side of the lands or whatever, the Zulu or the African natives, they don't care. It's a fact. They don't care. And that's what I'm saying. It's not until now, it's not until now where in 1965, when Mandela was set free, of course, the world started waking up and saying, you know what, this is not right. They step in, of course, and then they let them free. That's when South Africa changed. Now, the thing is, the mistake is, if you give a man that is uneducated power, he will mislead. He'll mislead the nation. If you give a man or a woman that just never had 100 or millions of dollars in their hands and doesn't know how to manage that, he'll mislead or he'll mismanage those resources.
So is there somebody you're talking about specifically?
Oh, I'm talking
examples.
There's a few examples. Look at the parliament. Look at the parliament that is being set up right now in South Africa. The parliament, the people in power, you might have education, but what are your moral values? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? Because you see, some of these people never had $100 million in their hands. They never had that. And guess what? When they have that stuff, they don't think about other people. They don't think about the country. They only think about themselves. Just like the previous president using the state's funds to fix his house. I mean, who uses the state funds to fix his house? Like, who are you, man? Who are you? Like, truly.
Yeah.
What distinguishes you from me? We put you in power specifically to represent us and to prosper us, not to just use our resources and to yourselves. And that's the problem we have in South Africa, because these people never been and had the proper, or it's just it goes back to the saying. It just goes back to the saying, if you don't know how to manage. If you don't know how to manage or separate $100, you will never know how to manage or separate or divide $100 million. You just don't.
Yeah. So let me see if I understand what you're trying to say here. I think what you've pointed out is there's been some people that have come in, they've taken the country captive, they've controlled the country, and whether it was Germany, it was England, there was some racism, there was whatever going on.
Race apartheid and all that.
Yeah,
Structure. Yeah.
And we can agree that that's wrong.
Yes.
And then you're telling me that, okay, well, they get rid of these apartheids, they get rid of some of the structural racism that's going on, but if they take somebody who is, they've gotten rid of the apartheid, but if they take somebody that has been untrained on how to manage all this and put them in power, then they're unlikely to lead correctly.
Yeah,
right?
they're unlead. Yeah.
So it's not good enough just to basically break the chains of this apartheid.
Right.
You also have to give people the proper training and education on how to manage these systems.
Yes,
is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and this goes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, this goes back to the, for example, let's go back to Burundi or Tanzania too, as well in East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
The Belgians. You know what they did? Or let's just look at the French. The French Empire never died. The French Empire, they had these countries sign these documents tying the French to these countries, and that's why France is the same way it is. And no other country prints the money. No country in Africa or former French colony prints their own money. No, only French. Only the French print the money, and they send it to those countries, and then they set them up to circulate, for circulation. No country prints it.
No country prints their own money.
Yeah, they don't print their own money. Only those francophone, they call them francophone countries. They print the French print the money, and 50% of their money stays in the French banks. That's why France is so rich, and those countries, those former colonies, are so poor. And you know what they did when they left these colonies? They blew up everything they spent centuries building. They set them back.
The infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure. And let's go back to Burundi, and this is what it ties into Burundi and Tanzania. When the British left and the Belgians left in Burundi, for example, and they were setting up to for leaving, of course, out of Burundi, they didn't train nobody to lead. They didn't. They didn't train. They didn't have, let me train these people to lead a government. Because what happened was that the United Nations had told the Belgians, you're bound to leave, okay? You're bound to leave that country. We want you out of that country at a certain date. So we want you to set this group of people to go in there in that country and train them how to lead the country, how to manage certain resources, how to lead the people. They didn't do that. The Belgians just left like that because they knew these people were going to kill themselves. These people were going to kill.
Do you think they want them to fail?
They
so
do.
That they can access the resources another way?
Heavily, man. Come on. This is why Africa's never going to live. Because if Africa unifies together, if Burundi or Tanzania set their stuff together, or they get their things together, then the whole world is under. You know why? Because here's the thing. Have you ever wondered why do every country in the world approaches each country in Africa as a single? Actually, for example, let's take the European Union. Why does the European Union in the last years or so, whatever, approach Ghana not as a whole West African country?
Probably population. I mean, I think what you're alluding to is the population of Africa is so large that if you approach it as one country,
right,
Africa wins. I mean, they have the population, they have the resources. You have to divide them apart.
Right.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And honestly, a lot of these countries don't have the means of power to keep these foreign influences out of their politics because they're told what to do all the time. Still today, they're told what to do from the beginning. They're told what to do because I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to say his name. I have a former judge in the Burundi, And the ambassador, all these European ambassadors, they came in. They were pushing this agenda that there was going to be genocide, and you could read these articles online. Truly, I'm not lying to you. These European countries were saying, the European Union was saying, "Oh, we want you to do this. We want you to not come back." They even invited him to Europe, and they told him, "Hey, we know there's no genocide." They knew there's not going to be genocide against the Tutsis. Just like there was a civil war. So what they did for him, they told him, "Hey, don't go back to your country. We'll make you citizen of the European Union. We'll set you up. We'll make you live happily and whatever. We just want you to do this and this and this." And he said, "I love my country." He embarrassed them because he wanted the country. And this is why it goes back to the whole thing. Outside influences, they always make sure that these countries don't break up their chain. And if there's what they call them bugs, if there's a bug in the chain, they will make sure to kill that bug. And that's what they do. They wipe them out. Have you ever wondered?
Like that president you mentioned earlier.
Yes. They always, and that's what I'm saying. Even if you look at all the, for example, if you look at all the meetup, the international meetups, the Tanzanian president, in the last 5 years, he was president, he always sent somebody to represent him. Have you ever questioned that? Ask yourself that.
No,
Go look at that. Go look at those
about it.
videos. I'm telling you, it's funny. It's just, why isn't he there? Even at these forums, whatever you call it.
And you're saying he's afraid of some sort of assassination.
He knew they were coming after him. He knew. He knew they were coming after him. He knew they were coming after him. And it was just a matter of time.
And was he, you said he's passed away recently.
Oh, he passed. Yeah, he passed away. Yep.
And were they seeing economic growth? Especially, and not just, like I said, we can say total GDP is growing, but is everybody getting a piece of that? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the population was greatly benefiting from, what was his name?
Magufuli. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Magufuli was, he changed. He did what he did in 5 years, the previous presidents couldn't do. They couldn't do it in 10 years. I'm telling you, he did this stuff. He came in and he cracked down on these corruptions, how these cabinet members will use the state funds to travel, luxury, go on all these meetings, useless meetings, doing nothing.
So it was cracking down on corruption in the country.
Yep.
It was breaking contracts with other countries
that
were not benefiting
to the Tanzanian people.
So was it bringing that, you mentioned China mining resources.
Right.
Was it's breaking those contracts, and then is it bringing that back to where the Tanzanian people can mine that and access those resources?
Yep, access those resources.
Sell those resources.
Sell those resources and benefit from them, and they're for the people. Truly, they're for the people.
From what I could tell in my research, Tanzania has a lot to offer.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at it from a lot of, the landscape. We're talking Kilimanjaro's in there, the Serengeti's there, which I also learned was that landscape was kind of the inspiration for what we see in Lion King.
Oh, yes, it is. It is.
There's some of the biggest lakes in the world, Lake Tanganyika and Lake Victoria.
Right.
You have the Ngorongoro crater. Did I say that?
Yes.
Yeah, which has the largest big game
reserve
in Africa. That's more from a landscape side, but there's a lot to offer there.
Oh man.
So I'm guessing there's a lot of other resources like
there's resources,
mining.
yeah. Yep.
So if the Tanzanian people are doing that work and benefiting from those resources, then I guess I should have started here. I read at one point, Tanzania was one of the poorest countries in the world.
Oh yeah.
And had the highest poverty rate.
Right.
But with all these resources, that seems shocking.
Yeah, it seems shocking. You see, you never know, and this is what I'm saying. You never know until you actually take a quiet or sit in the room and actually think to yourself, what am I actually what am I doing? What am I taking away? And that's the problem. It's about mentality. People are not willing to actually sit down and think to themselves, What do I need to do in terms of Unitarian, uh, um, in terms of Unitarianism, which is basically thinking for that group, thinking for everybody, thinking that I need you, you need me. Africans don't think like that. They say what's mine is mine. And when you think like that, when I come into a group of people and I say I came in to take what's mine, that doesn't make the group prosper at all. Because I'm extracting instead of putting it in, instead of putting my thoughts, instead of putting what I brought to the group. And that's the problem with Africans, because a lot of Tanzanians, they do that. I mean, that's why you see them, it's like neighbor to neighbor will kill each other. Because you see, it's like running with the Joneses. I'm pretty sure that's what they say in America. I see you get a nice car, I'm going to go get my nice car. I see you getting this, I'm going to go get it better than you. It's like racing. But in Africa, I see you getting a nice car, I'm going to kill you. That's what I'm going to do, Ralph.
Explain that to me. So you're saying America keeping up with the Joneses, you see your neighbor buy something nice, but in Africa, you see somebody else has something nice and they want to kill you and take it from you.
Yes, that's the way. Or they see you prospering at a certain degree. They want to make sure they stall, they kill. What they do is when they kill you,
bring that down.
Yeah, they bring that down. What they do is when they kill you, they kill your ideas too, along with you. So they're enriching. I have a philosophy about death. Like, truly, it's like most people say, "Man, you're obsessed with death." Yeah.
Sure.
And then, let me explain. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let me explain. Let me go in depth with this. It's because, you see, if you're doing something that you love, or if you're doing something that that you actually willing to die, you succeed in that thing. You will succeed in that thing. And this is what I'm saying, because when I was in East Africa, I had people trying to kill me. And this is what people don't know about that. Why they're trying to kill me?
Well, now you got to tell me about that. Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. This is why it ties into it, because the thing is, you have to understand that, okay, what we're doing has never been done before. With all our operations in terms of mining, whatever, agriculture, it's never been done before. Moving the supply chain, I told you about, I was in Sioux City, you know what I mean? There you go. And what has been done before, like how we're moving 5%, well, we'll be moving 5% in the next 3 years or so. We'll be moving 5% of the products that are produced by Tanzanians, produced by Rwandans, produced by Burundians, produced by Congolese, we're moving all these products across the African continent. And keep in mind, by the African Trade Agreement, which allows, companies to trade within each other, goods moving from South Africa, North Africa, whatever, moving each other, networking. The problem is there's no infrastructure. So we're starting by infrastructure, building all this stuff. And guess what? When you start building, you're hurting other people's business. And you know what they do? They send somebody to kill you. And I told you, man, they send someone to kill you. And when that person kills you, when I left East Africa, they burned the place I was staying at. They thought I was there.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I'm not lying to you. And this is I can show you photos too.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show me photos after this.
I'm serious.
Wow.
Let me say, no, it's shocking. And this is what I'm saying. Like, it's not because you have to understand is what price are you willing to pay? Ask yourself, at the end of the day, at what price are you willing to pay? Because when you do things like, man, it's like there's no tomorrow, bruv. Let me tell you, in East Africa, you have to be a lion, man. There's no... Yo, I'm telling you, this is fact. I know people say, oh, this is stories or whatever. No, I'm telling you, man. Because if you don't do what you need to do, this is what, if you don't know who to talk to in the government, if you don't know who to associate yourself in the government, you won't survive. Same thing as here. You step out of line, guess what? You think you're safe, bro?
I mean, I feel pretty safe.
You
but
know what? You're conditioned to feel like you're safe. It's true. Believe it or not. Why do they monitor your phone?
Yeah, well.
Why do they monitor your phone?
Yeah,
why do they monitor when you're speaking? We're not safe. Let me tell you, because here's the thing. Because they know if you step out of line, they're coming after you. They're going to put you in for questioning. For example, let's talk about, I don't want to go back on topic, but Martin Luther King, for how many years were they keeping track of him? He's tapping into him.
Yeah.
or the Panthers, whatever you call it. How many years were they tapping into them, following up on them? The minute you step out of line, the minute the beasts wake up around you, they come after you, bro.
I hear. Yeah, you make a good point, man.
I'm telling you, we're conditioned. Even in America, we're conditioned. The thing is, you're told from the minute you were born, they know you. I mean, think about it. From the minute you're born, I call it, they jab you with all these different all these different medicines to make sure that you grow. I know they're doing that for that. I never did that when I was born. I never had all these eight things coming through my leg. Sorry for that.
That's right.
8 things going through my leg. One, I don't know where. One on my cheek or something. I never had that. No, I was serious, but I never had that. So I'm all like, okay, and then after that, preschool, and then middle school, high school, all those. You're being conditioned the whole time. And guess what? You feel so safe. They feed you everything. Just work for us and all that. But in East Africa, you ain't doing nothing. If you don't know how to keep yourself, and this is what I'm saying, I have a philosophy of dying empty. That's how I run the world, man.
What do you mean?
Dying empty, meaning that I wouldn't call myself a religious person, but my greatest model is Jesus Christ. My greatest model is God. You know why? When Jesus Christ, if you know the Jesus story, when Jesus Christ came on earth, he knew his purpose. He knew what he came here to do. So he stuck to it. He knew when he's going to die. He knew how he's going to die. A leader always knows when he's going to die and how he's going to die. And that's why he runs. He runs every single day when there's fire. He runs after it. Because here's the thing. You never know. Tomorrow, the next hour, you're going to disappear. It's just a blinks.
So what are you here to do?
Who, me, man? Let me tell you something, man. Honestly, it goes back to my story. I know I have a book coming out within the next 2 years or so. I'm really working on this stuff too as well. And so I talk about, it was during the war. During the war, honestly, there's diseases hitting everywhere. There's diseases, wiping out children. I was on my deathbed, you could say. And you could talk to my mother about this story. I'm telling you. Like, man, she would tell you.
Do you know what it was?
It was a rare variation.
Yeah,
some sort of illness. It was a rare disease. I'm going to tell you, it was a rare stuff. Things when you have, like, no good sanitations. When you have no good sanitation, you're not eating well. You're not eating, cleaning yourself really well and all that stuff. And you just have dead bodies all over the place in camps and all that stuff. Man, come on.
Yeah.
There's going to be diseases that are rampant, man. They're going to kill. Either you smell the foul smells and all that stuff. I mean, so I caught that when I was younger, and damn, I almost killed. I mean, I literally, man. And from that, waking up from that, bro, I mean, I had a revelation, brother. As a young man, I had a revelation. My time was to go. I was ready to go. I was gone. When I came back, what the Holy Spirit told me, I'm here for something big. And that is to make sure that I leave what God put in me on earth. And that's to make prosperity, to leave my gifts in the forms of giving people chances. In the form of, and you saw the video. I mean, I know it's a foreign language, whatever. They were talking about schools. We went to the school and they're explaining what their troubles are. School, the facility, not enough computers, not even the internet, not enough good. The facility is not designed well, whatever. And honestly, I mean, like I said, we're gonna be building 5 schools in the next 6 years. In the next 6 years, on that video, it said, I'm telling you, that's why I was signing the contracts. We're going to be building schools. Yeah. And we're going to be, and I was setting up this whole supply chain from the north to the south to the east, just connecting points on where things are going to be moving, how things are going to be doing. Because let me tell you something. I believe in the people, regardless whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Mexican, whatever, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, we are human and we coexist. We need each other to survive. It's not until your lights turn off for a week, there's somebody out there who's doing who's
That's
doing
right.
the dirty work
That's
just
right.
for you to relax and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody out there spending their night with a gun, making sure that you're safe when you go to sleep. When you close your eyes, no, there's nobody coming in your house looking for you, hunting you down.
That's so powerful, man.
You
That's
see what I'm
something
saying?
we forget so
There's
easily.
it's like we don't care, but we
Yeah.
know I need you. There's something that you're doing right now in this office or whatever that is helping me one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm saying, that for me, honestly, it's for the African people. If it's for the human race, because I brought something on earth. You know, I brought something on earth that I believe that if I die with it, man, it won't do no benefit. I've stolen from the next generation. I've stolen
that's
from the next
powerful.
generation, man. That's what it is. That's why I run. That's why
awesome,
I run
man.
like crazy, man. That's why every single moment that I have, because I met death many times. I've met death face to face. There's in East Africa. Let me tell you, we were walking. Let me tell you something. We were traveling in the nighttime. Some rebels, I wouldn't call them rebels, whatever. But they have these groups in East Africa where I'll call them robbers, whatever you call it. They have these massive guns and machetes. They stopped us in the middle of the night. And that day, I thought it was my time. My heart was beating up. I could show you photos too if you like that too. Bah, 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 the whole time. Bah, bah, bah. Now, you know. They know, man. And my crew, of course, at the time, we were going through this area called Makamba. It's in the south of Burundi. Man, coming from Tanzania, man, let me tell you, bruv. I mean, we came out of the car. They told us to go on this area. And they started talking to us, why are you guys driving at this time? And we told them, man, we're just coming, to the city, we just finished work, and they started asking questions, They wanted money, of course, at the end of the day. Or we'll pay the price. And then I told them, you know what, now for me, I'm always one step ahead of time. I pull up my phone, and guess who I call? One of the generals. I can even show you a photo after the podcast. One of the generals, the head of the military. One of the generals, head of the military.
Yeah.
I call him up. You know what I told him? I'm at this location, and there's some people stopping me. And guess what? He told them, put them on the phone. I gave him the phone. And guess what happened, bro? We walked free. They said, oh, we're sorry. And they said, Tuabari in Kurundi. And we walked out of there. Bruv, let me tell you, that thing, I thought I was going to die, man. And this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, man. Most people, this is why I wake up every single day. This is why, because I know that in the works that I do, in the companies that I run, which is our 3 companies in East Africa, somebody's going to die. If I don't do what I need to do, someone's going to die. Just like in this area, just like in America, if someone is not out there in the high, what's it called, high ceiling, or building these skyscrapers, or if somebody's not really putting their back and breaking their backs by cutting all the meat in Tyson and in Smithfield, the nation won't eat. So somebody got to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to do the work. And this is what I'm saying. I must die empty. I want to die empty. And this is why I'm saying I have an affair with death. Because let me tell you, there's places where I've been to East Africa that people wouldn't even go to. You see that place? You see that place where all that house was and all that?
Yeah.
That was not the only house. There's people who sleeping like sardines in one little tent. And the cold, the rain, the water, sometimes over flooded. People die. People die every day. Starvation. There's people who die who die by starving to death. And I saw that myself with my own eyes. And leaving Africa, and this is what I'm saying, there's some stuff that I'm holding inside that I won't talk about here on the internet, because if it goes on the internet, no, I'm serious. There's shit that I just don't talk about, because it's just, it will cost me, because it's one of those things. I mean, you have people running after you, bro, the whole time. And this is what I'm saying, like, honestly, focusing on the most important thing, and that is we're coexistent. We need each other 100%. That's why I always tell a lot of African people out there. There's people that I met that I never seen in my life before, but I treat them just like Jesus Christ did. he treated everyone, regardless of their race, regardless of their status in society. He treated them with respect. He treated them with honesty. He advised them. He healed them. And it's our duty. It is truly our duty, regardless of whether you are, from whatever country you are in or whatever place that you go to. It's our duty. Just like you and me, how we met at the gym. I'm like, bruv, like, that was a miracle. Truly, it's a miracle. And guess what? It's truly a miracle because it's a blessing to have an individual who's really getting these messages out here in the world. Yeah, continue asking questions, man. I'm telling
King,
you, bro.
Well, King, this has been amazing, man. I had a ton of questions written down. We're not gonna have enough time to get to. We're gonna have to do this again.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
But I do want to. I want to ask you one more, and then I want to give you a chance to wrap up.
Yeah,
so,
no worries.
In the little bit of research I did, it sounds like oral culture, storytelling is still really important in Tanzania. In fact, they don't actually even write that many books.
Oh, damn.
It's still all oral history and kind of that culture. So is there a favorite Tanzanian proverb or story or lesson that you've heard? Do you have a favorite one that maybe you could share with us quick?
Proverbs. Honestly, man, in terms of like stories from Tanzania, a lot of it has to do with how can I say this? Like a lot of the proverbs that I know of really connect with me. It's really just hard to get down to one of them, but the one that really resonates with me is that the story of the egg. The story of the egg, man.
Let's hear it.
The story of the egg. And this story, of course, it resonates with me because, you see, an egg, you might see an egg outside, right? It looks so wonderful. It looks so wonderful, man. Mm-hmm. Now, most people or most certain species or whatever, or individuals or whatever, when they see an egg, they think it's beautiful, right? Outside. But when they open it, oh man, there's a surprise. And that's your job to find it out. That's your job. And it coexists with the life. It just, that whole Proverbs talk about that everything's beautiful on the outside. But it's not until you open it and see what it has to offer or the disadvantages. Which means that in life, you walk not in fear. Because at the end of the day, fear will keep you away from everything. You walk. As you walk knowing that where you're going, it's going to be beautiful. Regardless of the circumstances that you go through. Whether it's pressure, as in, you go through a lot with the egg. You have to hit the egg once or twice to break it in, Breaking that shell and opening that is what's gonna help you lead to the next step. That's why it resonates with me. That's why
awesome.
our pubs.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no worries.
Like I said, I'm gonna have. There's a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, no worries.
No
problem.
So we're gonna have to do this again.
No problem.
Let's finish up with this. Can you tell them any projects you're working on? Anything that you're excited about? You're working towards. You said you run a few companies.
Yes.
I know you've told me you work for do some work with some NGOs. So is there anything that you want to tell them before we're done here?
Oh, no problem. So, excuse me. So we do have, I just want to give out a few shout outs to, of course, Jude and Lisa, of course, who are my colleagues and are doing extensive work and have done extensive work for the division that we're starting up here. And I just want to give them a shout out and all the divisions that work in East Africa. And we are working on a lot of projects in terms of, like, for example, really moving a lot of the supplies from the north to the south through POA Suprema, which is a company that is run in East Africa. That is run in East Africa through all the countries that are composed of the East African Federation. And, of course, we work with a lot of the NGOs. As you saw in the video, I said POA, Suprema, and Maranathan. We support each other in terms of really working on building 200 homes within the next 4 years, 200 homes, and we're already in the process. If I could share that video, those photos with you, we're already in the process of building those homes. We've built so far 4 homes, and then of course, I just want to say that it's coming along. You know what I mean? In terms of the mining operations that we're gonna be sparking within next December, a lot of the mining operations, mining gold and diamonds and all that stuff. But I just want to say that if anyone has questions, truly reach out to, you know what I mean, subscribe to the channel, you know, for my friend here, because he's my brother. I can say he's my brother because it's amazing what he's doing here. And
Is
that's
there
all.
a
Yes,
way?
sir.
Is there a way that they can find you if anybody wants to see what you have going on or ask you questions? Is there some email or
Oh,
social media or something they can reach you on?
oh, definitely. I mean, you can reach me on Instagram, of course, Benefice Roy, which is, you know, I'll leave. I should probably give you everything, the information, and you put it in the description. I think that would be perfectly better.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
so.
Great. Well, King, thanks so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, I got a bunch more questions I want to ask you and even more after this conversation. So it's been awesome, man. I appreciate it. And let's go take a look at some of those pictures.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right.
Let's do that, man.